There's a small volcanic island off the southern coast of Japan called Mageshima. Nobody lives here. But here's Futterman to stay away from this island. That's because they're turning the United States. American fighter jets and aircraft carriers have had to do their drills and practices down here on this island. But now they're able to station at this island, moving them much closer to this ocean and to one country in particular. Mageshima is just one of many islands that are being loaded up with military hardware, most of it coming from the United States. It's part of this chain of militarized islands, an effort of defense or aggression, depending on how you look at it. It's a line that centers on Taiwan. And it's what one official was referring to when they said that 2023 is likely to stand as the most transformative year in U.S. force posture in this region in a generation. This line...
World War II. Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South.
Department of Defense. This document is called the National Defense Strategy of the United States of America, which also includes the Nuclear Posture Review and Missile Defense Review. It's basically a report that they release every 4 years that gives us an understanding of what the U.S. But this year's is more detailed than normal.
With China.
The DoD says that China, quote, remains our most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades. Why? Preferences. Now, remember that the United States, who spends loads on its military, China's growing strength and military footprint. Disregarding ocean boundaries, testing missiles, bullying fishing vessels in other countries' waters, building islands and military bases on those islands, and flying over other countries' airspace. And especially in Taiwan, the island that China claims as their own and where the globe together makes China, quote, the only country that has the intent and power to actually challenge the US-led. We've got about 8,000 troops in Guam. We've got over 100 bases in Japan with about 21,000 American troops on the mainland and another 24,000 stationed down here on the Japanese island of Okinawa. Go up to South Korea and you'll find 22,000 US troops. And then you've got the US Navy who operates out of this port in Singapore. This has been the status quo in Asia for decades, Japanese islands. I mean, if you look at Japan's national defense strategy, translated into English, you will see something that looks strikingly similar to what the Pentagon released. They're both really... So it starts up here with that island that we talked about at the beginning, Mageshima, this new military base and airstrip to be used by both Japanese and US militaries. Further south is Amami Island, where Japan has recently added long-range missiles and anti-ship missiles. Potentially they're going to add cruise missiles. These are missiles that they're buying from the United States. These are missiles that are definitely in range of the Taiwan Strait. Next to the chain is Okinawa, where the US has a huge presence of tens of thousands of troops already. Japan also has military bases here and is adding even more long-range missiles and electronic warfare units, which are military installations meant to disrupt and deny communication signals. On these two islands down here, they're adding even more long-range missiles, which could potentially be used to attack Chinese naval ships and aircraft. And Japan is placing nearly 600 troops on Ishigaki as well. And finally, you've got this last militarized island in the chain, Yonaguni. It's the closest island to Taiwan. And here Japan is adding more of those electronic warfare units, which are used to jam communication signals or to listen in on their communications. You know, they're right next to China. Japan is also positioning more troops here. Is actually planning to double their defense spending. They're spending way more on buying weapons than they ever have before. And 97% of those weapons are coming from the United States. The island chain Japan. The Philippines was a US colony in the region. So there's this military pact between the US, the UK, and Australia. Here in Australia, it's called Perth. Australian sailors will ride alongside US. So now, if you look at the whole thing, this whole chain, you see how robust this presence is. This is what that military official meant by transformative. The military name for this is the First Island Chain, and it is at the heart of the US and its allies' strategy to counter and contain China. And it's easy to see that this island chain, while protecting a lot of different interests for a lot of different countries, really centers on Taiwan. Is that all of this looks an awful lot like
this as the U.S. prepares for a potential conflict with China.
How close are we to all-out conflict between the world's two largest superpowers?
继续沿着错误的